Hey sports card fans, it's John Wade Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well. In 1911, the American Tobacco Company released one of the more distinctive looking sets ever produced. The 1911 T205 set can be broken down into three separate sets because it has different designs for American League, National League, and Minor League cards. In the end, however, the T205 cards are forever linked thanks to their gold leaf border. Covering the largest percentage of the 1911 T205 checklist with over half the cards, American League players are shown inside a diamond-shaped frame, along with a baseball, two bats, a catcher's glove, and a mask. A banner featuring the player's name and team city appears below the picture, while a logo and team name appear in the upper corner. Coming in at a total slightly less than the American League players, the National League cards are given a larger portrait shot, and their edges blend into the card's solid background. They also have a team name and logo in the upper corner, but a facsimile autograph appears below the photo in place of a printed name. This marked the first time a replica signature was found in a major card set. Minor league players are the smallest group and feature a more elaborate design, including columns and other elements to frame a 3/4 length picture. All three designs are surrounded by a frame of gold, which is very prone to chipping. This puts a considerable premium on high grades. To give you an idea of how hard these cards are to find in top condition, with over 47,000 cards graded by PSA, only 4 have received a PSA 9 and none have been graded a PSA 10. In fact, less than 200 cards have been graded a PSA 8, including qualifiers. While the cards feature 3 different front designs, all 1911 T205 cards largely feature the same back design. T205 cards are among the first sets to feature biographical write-ups and statistics, staples of later baseball card issues on the back. The player's full name also appears at the top. At the very bottom is an advertisement for one of the 11 cigarette brands from the American Tobacco Company that use the cards in their packages. Brands are, in order of scarcity from common to rare, Piedmont, Sweet Caporal, Polar Bear, Hassan, Sovereign, Honest Long Cut, Cycle, American Beauty, Broadleaf, Hindu, and Drum. Collectors may elect to complete a set featuring an example for each advertisement back, but those seeking a tougher chase can look further into the differences, which amount to 17 total back variations. Piedmont cards have either a factory 25 or 42 marking. Sweet Caporal is available in factory 25 or 42 with black ink. Sweet Caporal is also found with factory 42 in red. Hassan cards mention either factory 30 or 649. American Beauty backs appear with either black or green ink, as does Broadleaf. There have also been some proofs with blank backs uncovered. In all, there are 198 subjects that make up the basic T205 set. However, multiple cards and poses for several players push the amount to 208 cards in the master set. Variations involving both the front designs and the text on the back add to that total, which many collectors try to complete as well. The Dick Hoblitzel variation that does not include stats on the back is the most elusive card in the set. The T205 set is also heavy on Hall of Famers. While Honus Wagner is not featured, the set does feature cards of Ty Cobb, Walter Johnson, Christy Matthews, and Cy Young. Although some choose to omit the 12 minor league cards due to their relative scarcity, they are considered to be part of the 1911 T205 checklist. The minor league subjects are found only with Hassan or Polar Bear backs. In this video, I'm going to show the top 10 most valuable cards from the 1911 T205 set based on their PSA 1 values. The prices are for cards with the more common backs, including American Beauty, Hassan, Piedmont, Polar Bear, Sovereign, Cycle, and Sweet Caporal. Also, due to rarity, I did not include any error variations. Also give the values of those cards in higher grades as well as the population count of those grades. Now, as a side note, because some cards have very low population counts, the values in some grades might not reflect current prices, since it may be a year or two or even more since a copy in that grade has been sold. In those cases, the prices shown for the card is from the most recent sale in VCP's database. Now, before I get to the top 10, here are the cards that just missed the top 10. At number 15, the Johnny Evers card. At number 14, the Mordecai Three-Finger Brown card. At number 13, the George Graham Cubs card. At number 12, the Eddie Grant card. And at number 11, the Hal Chase Only Left Ear Showing card. So, which cards made the top 10 list? Let's go find out. Coming in at number 10, we have the Ed Walsh card. In the PSA 1, there have been 27 graded copies with a VCP price of $226. There have been 21 graded PSA 2. The last one sold for $248. There have been 34 graded at PSA 3. The last one sold for $570. There have been 39 graded a PSA 4. The last one sold for $854. There have been 15 graded a PSA 5. The last one sold for $1,320. There have been 9 graded a PSA 6. The last one sold for $5,520. There have been 4 graded at PSA 7, but there have been no reported sales of any PSA 7 copies in VCP's database. And there's been 1 graded a PSA 8. The last PSA 8 sale took place in April of 2019 through Heritage and sold for $28,800. At number 9, we have the Jeff Sweeney card. In a PSA 1, there have been 17 graded copies with a VCP price of $255. There have been 19 graded at PSA 2. The last one sold for $144. There have been 13 graded at PSA 3. The last one sold for $389. There have been 28 graded at PSA 4. The last one sold for $726. There have been 18 graded at PSA 5. The last one sold for $2,100. There have been 5 graded at PSA 6. The last one sold for $1,050. And there have been 2 graded a PSA 7. The only PSA 7 sale in VCP's database took place in October of 2013 through REA and sold for $1,067. And there's not been a PSA 8 graded copy of the Jeff Sweeney card. At number 8, we have the Eddie Collins Mouth Open version. In a PSA 1, there have been 24 graded copies with a VCP price of $267. There have been 36 graded at PSA 2. The last one sold for $510. There have been 30 graded a PSA 3. The last one sold for $840. There have been 26 graded a PSA 4. The last one sold for $1,064. There have been 20 graded a PSA 5. The last one sold for $1,560. There have been 13 graded a PSA 6. The last one sold for $2,400. There have been 3 graded a PSA 7. The last one sold for $4,200. And there's been 1 graded a PSA 8. The last PSA 8 sale took place in December of 2019 through Heritage and sold for $28,800. At number 7, we have the Art Chrome. In a PSA 1, there have been 10 graded copies with a VCP price of $268. There have been 19 graded at PSA 2. The last one sold for $66. There have been 16 graded a PSA 3. The last one sold for $92. There have been 31 graded a PSA 4. The last one sold for $136. There have been 28 graded a PSA 5. The last one sold for $204. There have been 14 graded a PSA 6. The last one sold for $1,075. There have been 2 graded a PSA 7. The last one sold for $690. And finally, there have been 2 graded a PSA 8. The last PSA 8 sale took place in October of 2015 through Memory Lane and sold for $1,879. At number 6, we have the Tris speaker card. In a PSA 1, there have been 55 graded copies with a VCP price of $327. There have been 84 graded a PSA 2. The last one sold for $563. There have been 67 graded a PSA 3. The last one sold for $802. There have been 78 graded a PSA 4. The last one sold for $1,260. There have been 44 graded a PSA 5. The last one sold for $2,013. There have been 14 graded a PSA 6. The last one sold for $4,750. There have been 5 graded a PSA 7. The last one sold for $3,360. There have been 6 graded a PSA 8. The last PSA 8 sale took place in February of this year through Memory Lane and sold for $30,509. And there has been one of the very, very few copies graded a PSA 9. However, there have been no reported sales in VCP's database of that one PSA 9 copy. At number 5, we have the Roger Bresnahan mouth open version. In the PSA 1, there have been 23 graded copies with a VCP price of $500. There have been 13 graded a PSA 2. The last one sold for $348. There have been 26 graded a PSA 3. The last one sold for $490. There have been 25 graded a PSA 4. The last one sold for $960. There have been 23 graded a PSA 5. The last one sold for $1,886. There have been 6 graded a PSA 6. The last one sold for $2,100. There have been 6 graded a PSA 7. The last one sold for $2,282. And finally, there have been 3 graded a PSA 8. The last PSA 8 sale took place in February of 2019 through Heritage and sold for $6,000. At number 4, we have the Christy Matthews card. In a PSA 1, there have been 146 graded copies with a VCP price of $626. There have been 155 graded a PSA 2. The last one sold for $1,342. There have been 133 graded a PSA 3. The last one sold for $2,092. There have been 121 graded a PSA 4. The last one sold for $2,805. There have been 78 graded a PSA 5. The last one sold for $10,500. There have been 25 graded a PSA 6. The last one sold for $8,845. There have been 11 graded a PSA 7. The last one sold for $46,111. There have been 7 graded a PSA 8. The last PSA 8 sale took place in April of 2023 through SCP Auctions and sold for $214,579. And there has been 1 graded a PSA 9. However, there have been no reported sales of that PSA 9 copy in VCP's database. At number 3, we have the Walter Johnson card. In a PSA 1, there have been 63 graded copies with a VCP price of $1,150. There have been 66 graded a PSA 2. The last one sold for $1,560. There have been 59 graded a PSA 3. The last one sold for $2,565. There have been 58 graded a PSA 4. The last one sold for $3,540. There have been 39 graded a PSA 5. The last one sold for $3,862. There have been 12 graded a PSA 6. The last one sold for $6,000. There have been 10 graded a PSA 7. The last one sold for $42,000. And there have been 4 graded a PSA 8. The last PSA 8 sale took place in December of 2019 through Heritage and sold for $63,000. At number 2, we have the Cy Young. In a PSA 1, there have been 60 graded copies with a VCP price of $1,267. There have been 75 graded a PSA 2. The last one sold for $1,777. There have been 58 graded a PSA 3. The last one sold for $2,760. There have been 62 graded a PSA 4. The last one sold for $4,491. There have been 32 graded a PSA 5. The last one sold for $8,280. There have been 16 graded a PSA 6. The last one sold for $14,050. There have been 8 graded a PSA 7. The last one sold for $53,874. And finally, there have been 3 graded a PSA 8. The last PSA 8 sale took place in August of 2019 through Heritage and sold for $43,200. And the most valuable, expensive card from the 1911 T205 set is the Ty Cobb. In a PSA 1, there have been 147 graded copies with a VCP price of $2,286. There have been 146 graded a PSA 2. The last one sold for $3,335. There have been 113 graded a PSA 3. The last one sold for $6,390. There have been 83 graded a PSA 4. The last one sold for $6,355. There have been 56 graded a PSA 5. The last one sold for $8,550. There have been 22 graded a PSA 6. The last one sold for $16,955. There have been 7 graded a PSA 7. The last one sold for $14,220. And finally, there have been 3 graded a PSA 8. The last PSA 8 sale took place in August of 2021 through Heritage and sold for $420,000. Well, there you go, the top 10 most valuable cards from the 1911 T205 set. As always, would love to know what you think about the set and the cards that made the top 10 list. And if you missed either of the last 2 videos in this series, you can check them out right here. With that, that's all I have for you. So until next time, thanks for watching.